In a series between two underachieving teams this season, it was the Atlanta Braves who were swept by the Baltimore Orioles. Just the latest of rock bottom for the Atlanta Braves. We'll talk more about that series on this episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and you're watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below. Let me know how frustrated you are with the Atlanta Braves. Enjoy hearing all of your comments, and thank you so much for your support there on YouTube, as well as on the audio side, where we still get the majority of our listeners. You can help out and help grow the audience by leaving a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your very first listen of each and every day. And thanks to all my everydayers out there as well. Been with me for a long while, short while. Thank you so much for making this your first listen every day. Today, we're going to talk about the weekend series against the Orioles. Yes, if you want to come here and just continue the misery with me of what was just a brutal weekend for the Atlanta Braves, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Sorry, not going to be a lot of optimism in this one. I tried to give you some last week. I got none for you today. There is no optimism for this episode of Locked On Braves, but we are going to talk about everything that happened and what we got to look forward to going forward. What is left to watch for this Braves team right now that just seems completely dead and out of it, and has for pretty much all season long since starting the year 0-7. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. The Atlanta Braves get swept by the Baltimore Orioles over the weekend, and hope you all had a great 4th of July weekend, by the way. Hopefully you spent more time with family and fireworks and barbecue and whatever else you like to do on 4th of July, and less time watching this Braves team, because it wasn't a lot of fun to watch them over the weekend. And matter of fact, I pretty much did miss most of the game on Friday. If you were watching the postcast that night, it was just Lindsay, because I was having too much fun with the family and just completely lost track of time. So I apologize for that, but it was a good one to miss with the Braves dropping a 1-run game there. But I do hope you all had a great, safe, happy 4th of July weekend, spent a lot of time with family. I know I did, and it was just great to kind of get away for a minute and spend time with family, and that's always what's most important here. So hopefully you were able to do that as well. But on the field, the Atlanta Braves, they weren't giving us much to get excited about. Not many fireworks going off for the Atlanta Braves, as they got swept by the Orioles, and it's the same thing. It's the same thing that it's been all year for this Atlanta Braves team. 2 1-run losses and an extra innings loss. So 3 very close games. Could have gone either way, but it doesn't go the Atlanta Braves way. They have just not found that ability all year to win these close games, and it has absolutely crushed them. I mean, if they were just 500 in these close 1-run games, they'd be in the playoff race, but they just haven't found that big hit, whatever that is, whether it's just a lack of confidence, whether it's just a lack of a good approach in those run scoring situations. They just haven't been able to win these close games. And you saw it over the weekend against the Orioles in 3 really close games, 2 1-run losses and an extra innings loss. It's been the same thing all year. And now you look at it in the most crucial part of the season for the Atlanta Braves, where you're at the midway point. Mathematically, you're about to be at the midway point with the All-Star break. And this was a stretch where you felt like if the Braves were going to have any chance this year, they had to have a good run leading up to the All-Star break. Because after the All-Star break, you're 2 weeks away from the trade deadline. You want to try to encourage your front office to go get some help to give you a chance in the second half. But in order for that to happen, you got to get the results on the field. You have to win on the field. And this was in my mind, at least, like I talked about last week, I was trying to be optimistic. It was kind of my last push of optimism to finish the first half strong, get back as close to 500 as you can, and then give the front office a reason after the All-Star break to go make some moves, to give you some help. And it's just completely gone the other way now. They've lost 9 of their last 10 games, and they've scored 1 or fewer runs in 6 of those 10 games. Look, this offense is just bad. I said it on the postcast. I've been sitting here just waiting, kind of hoping that this offense and these players that have been so good in the past, not just in 2023, but have been good even before 2023, that they would eventually just kind of get back to the back of their baseball cards. But it's not happening. It's a year and a half now of this. They're just bad. And again, we need to do a deeper dive on this. I think Lindsay's going to talk about it on his podcast coming up pretty soon too. But, and I've mentioned it on here a few times. You had the boomer bust approach, which led you to be one of the best offenses in baseball in the regular season. But in my mind, it left you somewhat limited in the postseason, where you're not getting those big 2 or 3 run home runs, where you're facing nothing but top starters in every game, and you're facing nothing but the top bullpen arms in every game. I feel like that's an approach that isn't as conducive in the postseason, where you can't be more well-rounded. I've talked about this for years and years and years, even when the Braves offense was good. And it felt like with the switch to Tim Hires that they wanted to try a different approach. They wanted to try to change up the offensive style. And look, I'll be honest, I thought that was a good thing, because as I said, for years, I've talked about how this boomer bust offense is great for the regular season, but when it comes postseason time, you got to find other ways to score. But instead, and whether it's just the coaching, I don't know, many people are mad at Tim Hires right now. I feel like he's the most hated man in Atlanta sports right now. It's either just the coaching or the players just aren't a fit for that coaching. I tend to think it's the players that just aren't a fit for the coaching, because while they've been less aggressive this year, they're just taking for the sake of taking. So what I really wanted to get to, and the point of this is going forward in the second half, I kind of just want to see them pick an approach. At this point, you're pretty much out of it. You're 11 games under 500. It's the furthest you've been under 500 since 2017, which is also the last time you made the postseason. So at this point, going forward with the offense, I either want to see you just completely shift back to the boomer bust approach, whether that means firing Tim Hires or just telling him, hey, we're going back to this offensive approach. And we're just going to go back to the swing hard at every pitch, see if you can do monster damage type of approach. And see if you can at least get back to that style of offense. Because again, when you had that style of offense, you were consistently a top 5 offense in baseball for, 2 or 3 year stretch there. So either do that and just try to get back to that style of offense, or just continue to push on with this new style of trying to be well-rounded. And while it might not work, and we're going to see some struggles in the second half that aren't any different than what we've seen for the last year and a half, hopefully you see, okay, who can make this change? Who can make this approach change for us going forward? This is the offense style we want to be going forward. Who fits that style and who doesn't? And you try to find that out in the second half, so you know what you have going forward. Look, I can tell you right now, Ozzie and Michael Harris don't fit that style, but that's what I want to see from this team going forward in the second half. A lot of you have been asking me, what are you watching now in the second half of the season with this team essentially out of it? One of the things I'll be watching is, what style of approach are they going to go with? Are they just going to revert completely back to the boomer bust approach? Are they going to stick with this more patient approach, but try to tailor it to where you're patient on pitches outside of the zone and you're swinging at good pitches inside of the zone, which is what you ultimately want with this approach? But instead, they're just taking pitches for the sake of taking pitches. And what style of offense did you want to be going for? I think, what I ultimately said on the postcast, and where I'm getting to with all of this is, what is your offensive identity? What are you going to be? Because right now, it just feels like they're stuck in between, and their identity is nothing. They have no identity offensively right now. They're not a huge slugging team. They're not that boomer bust team we saw in the past, although they still get a lot of walks, but now they're not getting the home runs, they're still getting a lot of strikeouts. They are getting walks too, but they're not getting home runs. Like, what style of offense are you? You're not the dink and dunk type of offense. You're not hitting for average. You're not a manufacturing type of offense. You're not stealing bases. You're not hitting well with runners in scoring position. You're not putting the ball in play. I was watching the Yankees and Mets game on Sunday afternoon after the Braves game finished up by, the time most of you got out of your Sunday dinner. or lunch. And it was really interesting to watch a Yankees team. Well, I think many of us probably have that boomer bust approach, how they worked small ball to score runs. Had runners at first and third, and Volpe tried to just shoot a ball the other way, and it was a force out. They got the out at second, but the runner from third scored. Because one, you had a fast runner in Volpe at the plate, but also he did enough to try to punch it in the hole the other way that McNeil had to go backhanded and get it, and there's just no way they were turning two. They had another instance later where they were able to move a runner over from second to third, and Judge comes up. He ends up hitting a home run, but you get your superstar with the runner on third and one out, and he hits a fly ball that it just snuck over the fence, but even if it didn't, it was going to be an easy run. And there were just several instances in that game where you saw the Yankees hitters just doing small things to move runners around to manufacture runs. And it's so frustrating to watch this Braves team that just seems incapable of doing that. So again, kind of just bringing this full circle, my big question for this offense in the second half is, what is your identity going to be? I think the front office has to figure that out, who they want to be going forward, and then you need to see who is going to fit that strategy. Which of these players are going to fit that strategy? Because if they don't fit that strategy, we got to try to mix things up in the offense to find the strategy that we want for our offense going forward. Because right now, they have no identity. Their identity is that they're bad. That's their only identity right now for this Braves offense. So next, we'll actually get into the series. We'll talk about how bad that offense was. We'll talk about the pitching too, which was good for the most part, but certainly on Saturday with the bullpen game, had some fallouts late in that one. But outside of that, the pitching did enough to win this series, but the offense couldn't pick them up. We'll get into all of that here next. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Maybe you were buying up fireworks like crazy for 4th of July. Those things are not cheap. And now you're wondering, where did all the money go? Summer vacations, online shopping, entertainment, dining out. It's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money, it's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Managing money with your partner is also smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. Who needs more stress in their life? Money can be a big stress point in relationships or just in general. And Monarch Money can help you out with that. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use our code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get 50% off your first year when you use promo code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com. Again, that's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Go check out the guys over at Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. Hey, you're looking for something to watch in the second half of the season. You can't watch this Braves team anymore. There's a lot of good teams out there playing baseball. I just mentioned the Yankees. There's a lot of good teams out there who are playing good baseball. So maybe look for another team to root for, but still come back here and watch Locked On Braves, as I'll keep you up to date on everything that's happening. Even if you don't want to tune in and actually watch them play, you can just watch Locked On Braves, and I'll keep you up to date. I'll be here every single day, no matter what. Even if this team finishes 72-90, like that 2017 team did, I'll be here with you each and every day. But again, go give the guys over at Locked On MLB a listen, as they do a great job keeping you up to date with everything happening around Major League Baseball. Let's get into the offense from the weekend. I talked a lot about the offense in the first half and their struggles. Friday, 2 runs, 6 hits, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. You had 2 extra base hits in this one, a double by Riley and a home run by Baldwin, but 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. Not a ton of chances and no hits with runners in scoring position. And of course, they get dominated by Charlie Morton. You could have seen that coming from a mile away. He had 19 whiffs, including 6 on his four-seam fastball. So Charlie Morton went in a revenge game against the Braves. He had a 10 straight retired to end the game in this one. I talked about this too on the postcast a lot. Me and Lindsay have the fact that it seems like it's either the Braves, put on a lot of stress early in a starter, they score a couple of runs, and then they do nothing late. Or what it feels like for the most part this year is they do nothing for the first 5 innings or so, and then they try to apply some pressure late in the bullpen, and it's just too little too late. But on Friday against the Orioles, it was, he had some pressure early. Charlie Morton, gave you some walks, hit batters like he always does, but they couldn't find that big hit. And then they did nothing. 10 straight retired once the bullpen came in for the Orioles on Friday night. You had a couple of scoring. You had 3 scoring chances in this one. You had a walk and hit batter to start the second and nothing. You did score a leadoff single in the third, and then you homered after the leadoff single in the sixth. So you scored on 2 of your 3 scoring chances, real good scoring chances you had in this game, but you only had 3 chances in 9 innings. They give you 9 innings to try to score runs. You had 3 innings where you had a real scoring threat, and that was basically it for the Atlanta Braves in this one. On Saturday, 6 runs on 10 hits, 4 walks, 11 strikeouts, 6 extra base hits, doubles by Olsen, Baldwin, Allen, and Riley, and then home runs by Riley and Olsen. And you just look at that and you hear that and you think, man, what a great game by the offense. No way they could lose this one. Well, they did, but they also were 3 for 12 with runners in scoring position, which again is, I guess they had some hits with runners in scoring position, but it also speaks to the fact that there were opportunities in that game on Saturday to do a lot more damage, and they couldn't. And in this game in particular on Saturday, it came down to the 6th inning to me. And I understand 6 runs, hard to put a lot on the offense in this one, but it was a bullpen game. You knew you were going to have to score a lot of runs to keep up. And the 6th inning was the turning point for me. Braves had bases loaded, no outs for Riley, Profar, and Baldwin. Scott Blewett was pitching at this time, former Brave, and look, he didn't actually pitch around Acuna and Olsen. He may have legitimately pitched around Olsen, but he walks Acuna and Olsen to load the bases with no outs. And it's almost like Scott Blewett was, I'm just going to force somebody else in this lineup to beat me. I'm not going to let it be Acuna and Olsen. Somebody else is going to have to beat me. And it pretty much worked out. Riley comes up. He strikes out on 3 pitches. And the last pitch was 95 right down the middle. It's up a little bit after he just seen a splitter down. But still, it's 3-pitch strikeout to Austin Riley with the bases loaded and no outs. Can't happen. Just absolutely can't happen. Profar comes up. He swings at the first pitch, a middle fastball, 94 miles per hour, and luckily hits it slow enough that they can't turn a double play, and it's just a force out. The Braves do get 1 run. So, hey, that's better than the Braves normally do in those circumstances. So you can see Profar paying big dividends already, big dividends. The Profar coming through. I was trying to set up a joke there, and then I just completely messed it up. But they do get 1 run because Profar hit a 94 middle fastball so weakly that they were able to score a run. And then Drake Baldwin gets ahead 3-0, but then misses a slider middle down and grounds out to end the threat. So the Braves get 1 run out of that. And it felt like to me, just watching that game, through the first 6 innings, you didn't have a score, didn't see the score. You were just kind of watching the game. In my mind, I would have felt like the Braves were up by 4. And especially after that 6th inning, it felt like they should have been up by a ton. But they were up by 1 run. And not doing enough in that 6th inning at that point, you pretty much just see the writing on the wall. The Orioles immediately come back and tie the game. And at that point, you just felt like the Braves were done. They had so many chances in the first 6 innings of that game. And yeah, they scored 6 runs, but just opportunities to do a lot more damage. And after that, just couldn't do anything in that game. Sunday's game, you got 1 run on 7 hits, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts. Basically, Sean Murphy in this one. He had the only 2 extra base hits, a double that went off the wall and came back in, and then a home run that went off the top of the wall and went out. But over 6 with runners in scoring position. So Friday and Sunday, you score a combined 3 runs, and you go 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position. And look, you had a lot. It may not have felt like it watching the game on Sunday. For me, I was listening to it because, again, it was so early, just got out of church and was listening to it while I got ready for Sunday lunch and all that. But there were a lot of chances for the Braves to score in this game. You had a leadoff single in the first. Twice in this game, Profar led off the inning with a hit, and nothing happened. I should mention, by the way, Acuna set out this game. He did a later pinch hit. Ozuna was out this game. Michael Harris was out this game, but he did later come in and pinch hit and get a couple of bats. So they did shake up the lineup a little bit, but really didn't produce much else, although it did, in my mind, prove that both catchers need to be playing every day. Ozuna needs to go on the IL. That should have happened weeks ago. But you had a leadoff single in the first, nothing. You had 2 on with 2 out in the 5th, and Allen strikes out in that situation. You had a leadoff single in the 6th, Profar again, and nothing happened. You had a leadoff double in the 7th, the one by Murphy, and nothing happened. You had Drake Baldwin, who generally gives you a good at bat. He pops up and foul ground to third base and is unable to score that runner from third with 1 out. You had a leadoff single in the 8th with Acuna, Profar, and Olsen coming up, and you do nothing. You had a 1-out single in the 9th and then nothing after that. So you had 6 scoring chances in this game. That's great. That's what you want. You want to, constantly putting on pressure, constantly having these scoring chances, but you go 0 for 6 in those opportunities. And that's not going to get it done. And that's why this offense is just bad, because you have 6 chances in a game to score and nobody comes through with a big hit there to just push across a couple of runs. It's all you needed. I mean, the only runs the Braves gave up on Sunday were a 2-run shot to Jackson Holiday, who had a huge day on Sunday. And the offense had plenty of opportunities. We just didn't get it done. That's the story of the season. Have the chances, but nobody's coming up with those big hits. I do want to mention the pitching staff real quickly. Spencer Strider on Friday, 6 innings, 7 hits, 1 walk, 3 earned, 6 strikeouts, 2 home runs. Orioles just hit a bunch of home runs over the weekend, what the Braves are supposed to do. 100 pitches for Strider in those 6 innings, 21 whiffs, 14 on the slider. Four-seam velocity was up just a tick, topped out at 98 though. A couple of mistakes really for Strider in this one on those home runs. You had a low middle fastball was down a little bit to Westberg for a home run. And then you had a slider to a lefty and Mullins that just kind of spun over the middle of the plate, and Mullins didn't miss it. So those are 2 just real big mistakes for Strider in that game. What otherwise I thought was another encouraging start for him. And look, at the end of the day, it's a quality start, but just not good enough for this offense. You got to do better than that. I mean, you got to be one or less to give this offense a chance right now. And unfortunately, the Orioles took advantage of the few mistakes that Strider made. Yeah, the bullpen game on Saturday, Bummer was great through 2 innings, probably left in a couple of batters too long, but in a bullpen game, you're trying to find somebody that you can stretch an extra inning or 2. But Bummer, again, left out there a little too long. Dodd, I thought, was good outside of just an 0-2 pitch to Colton Cowser that needed to be off the plate down and away, and he left it middle for a big 2-run home run. That was a big mistake there. Those are the 2 moments in that game on Saturday. The 0-2 pitch from Dodd to Cowser. He executes that pitch. It's probably a strike 3 or a weak ball in play somewhere, and you come up with more runs in the bottom of the 6. You put up a big crooked number there. Those were the 2 moments in the game on Saturday. Austin Cox was left in the game after the Braves took the lead, and I get it. You had used Dylan Lee and Pierce Johnson to try to stay in the game on Friday night, so you didn't want to use them on Saturday if you didn't absolutely have to. But you took a lead in the bottom of the 6th. Again, you just got that 1 run, so it's a very slim lead. And you bring Austin Cox back out there, and he immediately, allows the Orioles to tie the game. And then you go to Daysbel Hernandez. And I understand it was, the bullpen game. You're trying to stretch guys, but it just felt like that game, as Lindsay talked about on the postcast, they did every time he tried to stretch a pitcher just 1 or 2 batters too long. And I thought that was the case there with Cox. You had gotten the lead. You want to go to one of your best relievers and have a shutdown inning there, and they didn't do that. He was fine in the 9th. I thought he actually kind of got a little bit lucky in the 9th inning on Saturday, but he was able to put up a scoreless inning, and then Montero couldn't put Ramon Laureano away. Only real defensive miscue of the weekend that I can recall, and it's a tough play by Riley, but it's a ball that he'll probably tell you he needs to knock that down. He just kind of tried to lay it real quick and missed it. He was in a little bit, with the runner at third, which I don't know why you brought the infield in that much with the runner on third with the ghost runner. You're going to get the ghost runner at second anyway. You want to try to avoid the big inning. I guess with your offense, if that runner scores, you're probably going to lose regardless. But then Montero fell behind Stallings 3-0. And he gave up a big 2 RBI double that essentially, put the game away in the top of the 10th. A guy that had a 383 OPS coming into that at bat. So some good, some bad from the bullpen over the weekend. Lee and Johnson and Iglesias all looked good on Sunday. Johnson got into some trouble, but was able to work out of it. So those are, by far your top 3 relievers right now. And Johnson and Iggy, I think, could be on the move by the trade deadline. So hopefully they have some more good appearances to help out their trade stock. I mentioned the defense outside of the play by Riley, again, which is a tough play. I thought the defense was really good, and that's part of what's so frustrating. The defense has been really good for the most part of the season. I mean, you got a potential Gold Glover at shortstop, at first base, center field with Michael Harris out there, and even the catchers have been really good for the most part. And it's just the offense, and the starting pitching has been good for the most part. The bullpen has been fine for, what we all kind of thought coming in. And it all just comes back to the offense for the Atlanta Braves and not doing enough to support this team that would be in a much better position if they had even gotten average offense this season. But it's what's killed them all year long. We can talk about the pitching staff. We can talk about the starting rotation. We can talk about the front office not doing enough in that regard to begin the season. And those are valid points, but you want to point one finger at why this team's as bad as it is this year. It is the offense. That's just a plain and simple way to put it. All right, next we'll get into a little bit of news. We got old friend Jesse Chavez back, and I'll set you up for what's coming up the rest of this week leading into the All-Star break. We'll get into that here next. Well, I said the Atlanta Braves need to go 8-4 going into the All-Star break, and that's now impossible because they only won one game at home against the Orioles and the Angels. So again, nail, meat, coffin, as I put in the thumbnail of this episode. It feels like the Braves season is done, but they do have two more series leading up to the All-Star break. They will go out west to face the now Sacramento A's. And then they will go to St. Louis to face the Cardinals, who are actually a pretty good team right now. I had a big comeback win on Saturday against the Cubs. Watched some of that game as they're in a bit of a rival there. They are rivals, but they're also competing for the division title along with the Brewers in that NL Central. So the Cardinals will be a tough matchup. The A's have been one of the worst teams in baseball, but hey, so have the Orioles, and they just swept the Braves in Atlanta. So who knows what's going to happen out there in Sacramento. I'll line up those pitching matchups real quick. We'll probably preview this series more on Tuesday's episode or Monday's episode. But you got Didier Fuentes and his 9.00 ERA going against Jeffrey Springs and his 4.07 ERA. Bryce Elder and his 5.92 ERA going up against Mitch Spencer and his 4.06 ERA. And then Spencer Strider and his 3.93 ERA going up against JP Sears and his 4.76 ERA. So you look at these pitching matchups on paper, don't feel particularly great. And that's going to be the case for a lot of these pitching matchups we see here going forward with Schwellenbach and Sale out of the rotation. You're really hoping that you can win those Strider and home starts. You got two of those over the weekend against Baltimore. Both of them were quality starts, and you still lost both of them. And again, that is just the failure of this season on the offense. The two best starters that you have left, they give you quality starts, and you still can't win that game. That's the season right there. So we'll see what happens out there in Sacramento. You're going to need the offense to step up at all if you're going to have any chance of winning going forward. If you still have any hope, maybe you're still holding on to the tiniest bit of hope. Like I said, I tried it last week and then they got swept by the Orioles. So my hope is completely gone at this point. But if you're holding on to any hope, it's got to be that offense turn things around. Now, what I'm looking for in this series, because that's really going to be what we're focusing on going forward with the Braves pretty much being out of it. What are you looking for going forward? What are you looking for in particular series? I'm going to have my eyes on Fuentes. Look, they continue to throw him out there. Maybe even not for this year, but maybe for next year. Can he continue to make strides? Can he continue to use his full arsenal and just gain confidence? Is he a pitcher that we're looking for in the rotation going forward? So I want to see Fuentes continue to make some progress. I want to see Strider continue to make some progress. Would love to see that fastball velocity jump back up. Again, good start on Friday, but not a great start. He's still not back to the Strider that we're hoping for. And I'm just looking for any signs of seeing that old Strider coming back. So those are what I'm looking for on the pitching side of things. And then offensively, I talked about this in the first segment, but I'm just tracking at bats at this point. Who's giving me quality at bats every time up? And what type of approach are we seeing going forward? Who is this? What is the identity of this offense going to be? So that's kind of what I'm going to be looking for. Do they continue to put Ozuna out there? I'm sure they will. But what does the lineup look like? And who's giving us these quality at bats right now? Who's giving us the most quality at bats? Particularly looking at Michael Harris and Ozzie Albies. If they don't show any type of progress here, leading up to the All-Star break and after, what is the plan with them going forward? What other options do you have? So that's what I'll be looking for over the weekend or in the beginning of the weekend. Oakland, me and Lindsay will be up late for the postcast, trying to bring you some positivity. Hopefully we'll have some more this upcoming week. We'll be up late with that series in Sacramento. I'm going to try not to say Oakland as much as I can, but hey, I still say the Cleveland Indians. So here we go. With this upcoming week, you got the A's and then the Cardinals leading into the All-Star break. Now, there was some news on Sunday. Schwellenbach moved to the 60-day IL, so just further confirmation there that he won't be back until September, if at all. And Jesse Chavez brought back up with Dylan Dodd option just to give the Braves a fresh arm after the bullpen game. Snit already said we can't do that again, so they're going to have to find a starter at some point, although you do have the off day on Monday, but they'll likely need another starter before the All-Star break to not have to go with another bullpen game, or at this point, just put Jesse Chavez out there for 5 innings, see what he can do, or call up Jackson Stevens, let him throw 5 innings. He's had some good appearances lately at Gwinnett. Well, that would do this episode of Locked On Braves. Please stay with me. Don't give up on this. Like I said, even if you don't want to watch the Braves, just come here for your therapy session. I will let you know how bad they were. But again, hopefully we'll have some positivity in the second half, that even if it's not for this year, for the coming year. And who's part of this team going forward? Can they make some strides in the second half of this season to build into next year? But make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And we will talk to you next time.